I'm going to take 10 minutes to say, 10 seconds, see what I got to say, then we can pray. Amen. And we got a scripture, we familiar scripture now that says that, except the Lord build the house, they that labor, they labor in vain. Except the watchman keep the city, they that watch it in vain. And I want to say this morning, every time I always ask God, Lord, what must I say to the people? And he always drop a little nugget, I drop a little nugget here, drop a little nugget there. And we have a lot of crime, a lot of murder, what is going around. This is praying time. The laws are made here. Let us govern ourselves and stiffen these laws. Too much murder. The murder got to stop. And also we got to pray. The watchman got to pray. And we got to cover ourselves and cover our children under the blood. This week we had about 10 murders. Last week and this week. What we can do? Pray. Except the watchman watching the city, they watch it in vain. We are the builders. We make the law, make stiff penalty against murder. Amen? Amen. Okay, y'all going quiet because y'all don't want no stiff penalty. Amen? Amen? This is serious time we are living in. And this is the last and evil days. We say this is Lent. Oh, the devil busy. Man, get off that, man. The devil busy all the time. Don't blame it on Lent. The Bible said, train up the child in way he should go when he's old. He will not depart. Look at them going quiet, because some of y'all must train up in the child. Block it on your yes, man. Let me pray for we have a revival up in this place, man. For I bust a move in the Holy Ghost. Bow your heads. Oh, give thanks unto the Lord, for he is good. And his mercy endureth forever. God, we come before you just to say thank you, Jesus. And we know, God, without you, we cannot do nothing. God, without you, we be like a ship without a sail, tossing and driven. Precious Lord, this morning, God, take our hand, God, and lead us on, God. Father God, in the mighty name of Jesus, God, we decree and we declare, God, miracles, God, cover us, Lord. Cover our children, God. Cover us even in this place, God. Because we know, God, we not wrestle against flesh and blood, but against spiritual wickedness and high places, God. We come against every murdering spirit, God, in this country, God. We ask you, God, to loose your anointing right now, God. And right now, I bring every member of Parliament before you, God. God, you know them by name and by nature, God. Father God, I ask you, God, to cover them right now under your blood right now. Breathe fresh upon them right now, God, in this day right now. We thank you, God. We give you the praise and we give you the glory, God, and we give you the honor, God, because we know your name is worthy to be praised, God. Above all name, we thank you, God. We pull down every stronghold, what don't look like you. In the mighty name of Jesus, let all God people say, amen. And thou hast taught us to say, children, which art in heaven, hallowed be thy name, thy kingdom come. Thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us, God, from all evil. For thine is your kingdom, the power and the glory, forever and ever. Amen. May the peace of God be with you that passes all understanding.
Philip Davis, Chester Cooper, Fred Mitchell, Glennis Hannah Martin, Obadiah Wilstrom, Alfred Sayers, Dr. Michael Darville, Clay Sweeting, Keith Bell, Wayne Monroe, Vaughn Miller, Jobeth Colby Davis, Ginger Moxie, Mario Bolag, Jomo Campbell, Basil McIntosh, Miles LaRota, Pia Glover Roll, Lisa Ramming, Zane Lightbourne, Dr. Hubert Minnis, Jamal Strawn, John Pinder, Marcus Roll, Leon Lundy, Kirk Cornish, Wade Watson, Leonardo Lightbourne, Leslie Miller Bryce, Leroy Major, Sylvanus Petty, Mikkel Bonnaby, Michael Pintard, James Kwesi Thompson, Aram Lewis, Shannon Dawn Cartwright, Adrian Gibson, Adrian White.
Thank you. Honorable members, we will now go down the order of business. Introduction and swearing in of new members. Laying of documents by ministers. The chair recognizes the honorable member for Exum and Ragged Island.
Madam Speaker, I beg leave to lay on the table of the House a copy of the following. The Judicial and Legal Service Prescribed Public Officers Act, Amendment to Schedule Number 2, Order 2022.
Order that the document be brought up. Order that document do lie on the table. Further laying of documents. The chair recognizes the honorable member for Tall Pines.
So much. Madam Speaker, I beg leave to lay on the table of the House a copy of the following. The Health Services COVID-19 Prevention and Management of Community Spread Amendment Number 6 Rule 2022. The Health Services COVID-19 Prevention and Management of Community Spread Amendment Number 7 Rules 2022. The Health Services COVID-19 Prevention and Management of Community Spread Amendments Number 8 Rules 222. The Health Services COVID-19 Prevention and Management of Community Spread Amendments Number 9 Rules 2022. The Health Services COVID-19 General Amendment Rules Number 3, 2022. Thank you.
Order that documents be brought up. For the laying of documents. Chair recognizes the honorable member for Pinewood.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I beg to lay on the table of the House a copy of the following: the Road Traffic Act 2020 Amendment Number 2, appointed day of notice 2022.
Order that the document be brought up. Order the documents to lie on the table. Further laying of documents by ministers. The chair recognizes the honorable member for West Grand Bahamas.
I wish to lay on the table of the House the annual report and audited financial statements and auditors report 2020.
Order the document be brought up. Order that the documents do lie on the table. Further laying of documents.
Madam Speaker, I wish to lay on the table the Industries Encouragement Approval Product Ululux Bahamas Limited Order 2022.
Order that the document be brought up. Order that the document do lie on the table. Further laying of documents.
Madam Speaker, I wish to lay on the table the Price Control General Amendments Number 2 Regulations 2022.
Order that the document be brought up. Order that the document do lie on the table. Further laying of documents?
No further laying.
Thank you, honorable members. Statement and communication by ministers. The chair recognizes the honorable member for Freetown.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Gives me pleasure again to rise in this historic place. And again, I thank the good people of the Freetown constituency for sending me here. On this occasion, Madam Speaker, I rise to communicate to Parliament and to lay.
Excuse me, honorable member. Today there will be no tolerance for cell phones, none. I will exercise 8080 if I hear any cell phones go off any further. Thank you, honorable member. You may continue.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. This communication relates to the laying of the Commissioner of Police 2022 policing plan. Before I get into this communication, Madam Speaker, let me, for the edification of the House and of the Bahamian public, advise what this communication does not do. This communication does not engage at this point on the government's plans relative to budgetary allocation for the police. This communication does not express any views about the efficiency of the policing plan other than constitutionally, this is what the Commissioner of Police intends to do. This communication does not address the current, what the police have described as a turf war that the Bahamian public is viewing. This communication will not disclose confidential tactics to be used by the police, as that would neither be prudent or sensible. What this will do, Madam Speaker, honorable members, is to set out what the Commissioner of Police sets as his sevenfold objective in his plan. I can say, Madam Speaker, that this will be available to the public, and the public will see that each priority comes with objectives, comes with key performance indicators, comes with expected outcomes, and comes with who is to lead the responsibility. In very short order, in the budget debate, the public will hear at length what the New Day administration, in a budget that it can provide, intends to do. As I move to this communication, Madam Speaker, let it be clear that our constitutional order puts the obligation on policing on the police. The police are not to be controlled by the political directorate for some obvious reasons that some would say, and as this is a communication, I wouldn't be controversial, but some would say the ability of the political directorate to control the police may have some obvious outcomes. We can debate whether that has happened in this country yet at a later date. But under the provisions of Article 52(1) of the Constitution, Parliament is mandated to make laws for the peace, order, and good governance of the Bahamas. During each session of Parliament, we, the people's elected representatives, have a duty to make decisions that enhance the quality of life for Bahamians. The chaplain spoke about stiffer penalties for murder. The current penalty for murder is death. That is the state of our legislation today. As Minister of National Security, I'm charged with carrying out the government's mandate on crime reduction and public safety in alignment with the blueprint for change, bearing in mind necessary policies and reforms to create a safer society. Although we have seen how the investments by the former Christie Davis administration and strategies employed by the Royal Bahamas Defense Force in this instance paid off in patrolling our borders and upping interdiction. Responsibility for public safety is primarily borne by the armed forces of the Bahamas. The Royal Bahamas Police Force is primarily charged with ensuring public safety in our communities. The force represents a rich tradition of 182 years of unbroken law enforcement service, and the organization is undoubtedly the primary gatekeeper of civility in our country. The brave men and women of the Royal Bahamas Police Force represent a thin line between enmity and absolute anarchy on our streets. The Royal Bahamas Police Force and the wider government of the Bahamas has moved industriously to leave no stone unturned in ensuring that criminal elements do not feel emboldened to operate in any corner of the country without fear of the law. The Royal Bahamas Police Force is currently under the leadership of Commissioner Paul Roll. Section 9 of the Police Act 2009 outlines a mandate that calls upon the Commissioner of Police to prepare a plan for the Minister of National Security, setting out the proposed arrangements for policing of the Bahamas each year. This produced plan is referred to as the Commissioner's Policing Plan. The Act stipulates that the policing plan shall include a statement of the Royal Bahamas Police Force priorities, objective, performance targets, and its proposed allocation of resources. It's my honor to table the Police Commissioner's 2022 plan for the Commonwealth of the Bahamas. The Royal Bahamas Police Force falls directly under my mandate, and Commissioner Roll and the wider force are committed to ensuring the safety and security of all Bahamians, residents, and visitors. While 2021 was challenging for the force, particularly with quality of life offenses, the officers remained resolute in the fight against crime, which resulted in a decrease in property crime. Overall, the force was, in my judgment, successful in fulfilling its 7 priorities as outlined in the 2021 Commissioner's Policing Plan. The overarching objectives that supported each priority guided the organization's strategic approach and response to crime, as well as other factors impacting crime. While we are continuing to learn about the effects of these initiatives on police performance, we believe that there's cause for optimism. All 7 priorities received significant attention and resources, and the outcomes were positive. A preliminary review of crime indicates that the deliverable targets were achieved, as evidenced by the overall rate of crime remaining comparatively unchanged by the end of 2021. We must remember that the year 2020 involved extended periods of lockdown, and that was the year that was used as comparator for 2021. The force was able to achieve its objective in that the overall rate or percentage of serious crime did not increase, albeit there's room for improvement, as various categories of quality of life offenses did in fact increase. Accordingly, crime against the person increased by 18% in 2021, with 870 incidents compared to 736 in 2020. Property crimes decreased by 4% in 2021, with 3,211 incidents compared with 3,328 in 2020. During the year, there was a 13% regional decrease in crime on the Family Islands when compared to 2020. There was a regional increase, however, in New Providence and Grand Bahama at rates of 2% and 1% respectively. In the force's quest to keep the Bahamian public safe, it's heightened police visibility throughout the Commonwealth. As a crime preventative measure, the force ran daily police operations targeting hotspots and prolific offenders. As a crime deterrent strategy, the officers conducted road checks and engaged in aggressive stop and search tactics to remove illegal firearms and dangerous drugs from the streets of the Bahamas. I have received, Madam Speaker, any number of complaints from people, citizens, about the inconvenience of road stops. And I would simply say to the public that it is an inconvenience that is recognized, but one must bear in mind the purpose for which that inconvenience is foisted upon the Bahamian people, and that is to address the discovery of illegal firearms and dangerous drugs. The officers executed numerous search warrants and detained persons on outstanding warrants and brought them before the court. Notably, the force was able to seize 277 illegal firearms and 3,430 illegal rounds of ammunition in 2021. As a result, 145 suspects were arrested and charged with possession of illegal firearms. Additionally, the officers of the Royal Bahamas Police Force seized 6,325 pounds of marijuana, 8,801 marijuana plants, and 4,673 pounds of cocaine in 2021. As a result, 1,165 persons were arrested and charged for possession of dangerous drugs. The force's traffic initiatives have led to a 16% decrease in traffic fatalities for a second year in a row. The police force remain on the cutting edge of emerging technology with its real-time crime center by integrating technological advances such as ShotSpotter, CCTV, and police body-worn cameras, which has assisted with the arrest and prosecution of countless individuals. In addition, the drone program, which is underway to further assist in fighting crime efforts, will be hopefully resolved in this upcoming year. The testing of the Marco's alert by both telecommunications providers is a finalization of the promise given by the then Minister of National Security, the late Dr. Bernard J. Nottage, to the family of the late Marco Archer. This is a promise made and a promise kept. There was significant investment in human resources with ongoing training, which has enabled police officers to deliver a more professional service to the public while improving their investigative ability. This has enabled the force to improve its case file preparation process, resulting in more successful prosecution and higher conviction rates. To that end, 2,438 law enforcement officers in various disciplines received training. This training included 14 recruits from the Turks and Caicos Islands, 8 Royal Bahamas Defense Force officers and Marines, 8 correctional services officers, and 12 security officers. The force utilized its community outreach through Urban Renewal, the National Crime Prevention Office, and the National Neighborhood Watch Council to educate the public on road safety, domestic violence, and crime prevention tips. These resources were also utilized as a means to bridge the gap between the police and the community. The officers demonstrated compassion to victims of serious crimes and conducted 450 family meetings, 175 follow-up telephone calls, and 200 agency referrals for counseling. Notably, the police force collaborated with other law enforcement agencies and ran joint operations with the Royal Bahamas Defense Force, the Department of Immigration, and the Bahamas Customs Department in addressing the overall fight against crime. The force remains committed to providing policing services that are relevant to the changing policing environment. To that end, the force will continue to recruit suitable persons into the police training college to enlist as recruit constables. The organization has shifted a high priority, the organization has placed a high priority on training and will continue to diversify its staff through the employment of university graduates with varying professional disciplines that will add value to the organization. The strength of the force currently stands at 2,654 sworn police officers, 900 police reserves. Let me repeat that, Madam Speaker. 2,654 sworn police officers, 900 police reserves. That is a total of roughly 3,500 policemen, a little over that. I emphasize that, Madam Speaker, because as we have been saying, we must all become force multipliers for the police. 3,500 policemen cannot be seeing where people are hiding their guns. They cannot be seeing all of the conflicts. The public has a responsibility as well. That is the strength of the Royal Bahamas Police Force that we have met in place. Due to attrition factors, 130 police officers exited the force in 2021. An additional 96 officers are expected to retire or commence pre-retirement leave by the end of 2022. And we must put that in the context that the current recruit class is 100. And so subtracting the 96 who will enter, there will be, God willing, no deaths, which there are bound to be, minimal increase, if any, in police numbers if recruitment is not addressed urgently. These retirement numbers are daunting, given the fact that over the last 4 years, the force was unable to sustain recruitment levels to supplement the retirement losses. Notwithstanding, the force is in the process of a recruitment exercise to rebuild the strength of the force, which is deficient by an estimated 900 police constables. The financial cost for the expected 190 new hires is estimated at $3.42 million. Commissioner Rolle has assured me that he will continue to realign the ranks of the force to efficiently manage the manpower resources at all police stations throughout the Bahamas. This strategy will effectively maximize the use of police officers in addressing public concerns and preventing crime at the community level. This New Day administration has pledged to increase investment in community policing units throughout the archipelago to facilitate these efforts. I'm pleased to announce, together with the member for Marathon, that the Urban Renewal Band, URB, are back in full force. It is now the Urban Renewal Revolutionized Band. They now stand at 311 young people strong. I'm advised by former Assistant Commissioner Stephen Dean and Superintendent Theodore Campbell that before they were neglected, their numbers stood close to 1,000 or slightly over. We are now back at 311, and Superintendent Campbell's view is that he should be up to 700 strong by the summer. I was also advised that there's recruitment in all areas of New Providence, and it gives me personal pride to be told that Freetown leads the way in the overall number of recruits to the urban renewal band. And I challenge every other MP to catch us. That's a challenge on the floor. And I see St. Barnabas laughing, Marco City, competitive athletes, they know what the challenge is. The challenge is to catch Freetown, the level of young people in the urban renewal revolutionized band. And the member for West End and Bimini can account, having been out on Saturday and seeing this group of young people, that it is very positive. These are the faces of persons who will be in our gang and not in any other gang. And so I do challenge and implore members of Parliament to take up Superintendent Campbell's challenge and do assist us in expanding the numbers. There's a cost side to this, however. Superintendent Campbell has sent me a list of instruments. There's transportation issues, there's feeding issues for these young people. The motto is that it's much better and cheaper to build a strong man, a boy or girl, than to repair a broken man or woman, and that is very true. We will be asking civil society to partner with us to address the cost of instruments, cost of refreshments, and vehicles to transport these young people to and from their events. As I said, we must ensure that these young people join us instead of joining gangs. The force operates in a dynamic environment that continues to change and reflect global trends. One of the lessons learned is that organizations can always improve on its response to crime and in its relationship with the public. The challenge for the future of policing is to understand criminal psychology while simultaneously applying viable techniques to tackle the complexities of policing in the 21st century. The force's crime-fighting strategies and policy and policing initiatives are geared towards building safer community through public support, discourse, and participation, incorporating the latest research and advancement in law enforcement and crime prevention while relying on a data-driven approach to policing will be critical as we seek to counter antisocial and criminal behaviors while building stronger community relationships. As we seek to police the Commonwealth of the Bahamas in 2022, Commissioner Roll has prioritized 9 key areas, and I must correct, previously I'd said 7, it's 9. 2021 was 7, 2022 is 9. The first priority is transformational training. The ability of the force to achieve its goal and objectives to creating safer communities by transforming into a learning organization where training on best practices in policing is continuously integrated into the curriculum and implemented in processes. Training is very important. Priority 2 is transformative human rights standards recognition and implementation. And this is the ability of the force to effectively recognize the basic human rights of all individuals while policing throughout the Commonwealth of the Bahamas. This will no doubt address complaints from the public about police abuses and reduce the level of awards against the Bahamas government in civil cases in the courts. Priority 3 is transformative community policing services and the ability of the force to prevent crime and reduce the fear of crime through transformative community policing services. Priority 4 is criminal investigations, intelligence, and prosecution. And this priority targets the ability of the force to effectively manage crime through the use of cutting-edge investigative tools and criminal intelligence. The Commissioner's fifth priority is to heighten police operations. The ability of the force to allay the fear of crime and/or prevent crime by heightening its police operations throughout the Commonwealth of the Bahamas. And as I've indicated, this New Day administration intends to up recruitment to permit human resources for the Commissioner. Priority 6 is transformational information and communication technology. And this priority focuses on the ability of the force to utilize transformational information and communications technology as a crime-fighting tool to assist the police in operations and reducing crime. Priority 6 is public road safety, and this priority focuses on the ability of the force to keep all road commuters safe through education and enforcement of traffic laws. The Commissioner's priority 8 is protection of at-risk groups, and this priority targets the ability of the force to protect all members of society, including at-risk groups susceptible to gender-based violence and domestic violence, by prosecuting offenders and heightening awareness of these groups. We would have already heard Acting Commissioner Fernandez's commitment to establishing a standalone domestic violence, intimate partner violence unit of the Central Detective Unit. Priority 9 is youth engagement, and this priority targets the ability of the force to positively impact young people into becoming productive members of society through anti-gang and anti-firearms messaging. Collectively, these 9 priorities cover the major areas of crime prevention and law enforcement under the direct responsibility of the Royal Bahamas Police Force. As Minister of National Security, I'm fully committed to empowering and supporting the Commissioner of Police and all officers under his command in the successful execution of their duties. The New Day administration came into office with a promise of bringing competent, compassionate governance for everyone. We cannot accomplish this goal without ensuring that at every level of our society and on every island, our citizens feel that justice is accessible, peace is within reach, and safety is always prioritized. We're committed to create a country where all of our citizens, regardless of their income level, educational level, where they live, or what mistakes they have made in the past, feel that they have a stake in conformity and that our society is rooting for them. Accomplishing these goals won't be easy, but I am confident that working together, we can create a safer, more secure country for everyone. Certainly, the 2002 policing plan charts important steps in that direction. Madam Speaker, that concludes the communication. But with your indulgence, may I just say this. At the outset, the chaplain called for prayers. Our Constitution in its preamble recognizes the importance of our Christian values. I had the privilege of attending the 166th anniversary of the St. James Native Baptist Church on Sunday past, and their theme was Ready for Battle, which was very topical today. And the text was Ephesians 6:10 through 18, about putting on the full armor to fight the forces of wickedness that are about in our country. I would close with this one observation, Madam Speaker. We often hear people call for what is the church doing? Well, I said to St. James Native Baptist Church that at the very least, that acknowledges that we understand that the church is important. And just like when you buck your toe, you cry out, oh God. When you get in problems, you cry to the Lord. Well, the one observation I will leave with us, Madam Speaker, is of all of the accoutrements of battle set out in Ephesians 6, there's only one offensive weapon mentioned at all, and that is the sword of the Spirit, which is the word of God. So the only offensive weapon that the Bible tells us that as a country, as a Christian nation we have, is the word of God. And we would say, as others have said, and as the chaplain said, we have to ensure that we preach it, speak it, live it, and inculcate it in our children. Madam Speaker, it gives me pleasure, therefore, to give this communication and to table the Royal Bahamas Police Force, the Commissioner's Policing Plan for 2022.
Thank you, Honourable Member. Order that the document be brought up.
No. And Madam Speaker, I am formally tabling the policing plan. That's my name and date there. Yes. Oh, sorry. Oh, I put it on the bottom.
Order the documents to lie on the table. Further communication by ministers? The chair recognizes the honourable member for Central and South East.
Thank you, Madam President. Madam Speaker, I'm still back in the Senate, but it's an honor to stand here today and represent constituents of Central and South Eleuthera as I bring this communication. And I am pleased and privileged to present to this honorable House a copy of this historic publication entitled Masters of the Sea, Regatta and Sailing Tradition in the Bahamas, authored and designed by Patricia Glinton Miakolis and Nico Miakolis of Guamima Press. This book, produced throughout a global pandemic, provides intricate details of preserving the world's last wooden sloop fleets that are used to conduct the national sport of sailing. I would be remiss if I did not recognize my predecessor, the Honorable Member for Marco City, Michael Pintard, who saw the need to capture the story of Bahamian sailing and regattas and commissioned this book. Madam Speaker, the waters of the Bahamas have summoned millions worldwide who wish to see the manner of our bearings. The waters of the Bahamas are much like our islands, magnificently diverse with breathtaking beauty. In its multitude shades of blue and sometimes emerald green makes the Bahamas beauty unparalleled to any nation in the world. From the times of swashbuckling pirates to now, the treasures of our seas are undeniable, and sailing is no doubt a part of the Bahamian spirit, which is why I am so pleased that the Bahamas government is still working to ensure that regattas are back in place for this upcoming season. This comprehensive book celebrates all that is to be master of the sea in the Bahamas. It celebrates our ancestors, our boat builders, our sail makers, mast and jib trimmers, anchor road haulers, and pride riders. Boat owners and sponsors have all played an intricate role in this passion for the sport. We recognize history makers who dedicated their lives to boat building and sailing. Regattas are well known to be the driver of economic activity throughout the Bahamas. As a result of these events, numerous jobs are created, such as boat building, sail making, fisheries, straw work, t-shirt manufacturing, culinary arts, music, folk arts, entrepreneurship, transportation, hospitality, and tourism. We hope, Madam Speaker, that this book will be enjoyed by all and that it encourages Bahamians young and old to preserve the future of regattas and sailing for many generations to come. I thank you, Madam Speaker, and I have ensured that everyone in this place has received a copy of this book, and I would also like to table it. And
Thank you, Honourable Member.
I hope that you received your copy, Madam
Yes, I
Speaker.
did. Thank you very much, Honourable Member.
It's a good book, a lot of history about sailors and Bahamians and people. Oh, I got some Axomians. I got some Long Islanders. I got a few Eleutherians. So I got some Acklins. So we got a ways to go for Eleuthera to try to catch up to Axoma and Long Island. But we'll get there. Madam Speaker, thank you. I also want to table.
Thank you,
this
Honourable
book as
Member.
well.
Order the document be brought up.
Thank you, Mark.
Thank you. Order the document do lie on the table. Further communication by ministers? The chair recognizes the Honourable Member for Garden Hills.
Madam Speaker, I stand in this honorable house humbly and proud as a representative of the great people and the great constituency of Garden Hills. I wish to also take this time to thank my dedicated wife and my beloved children and all of my family for the support for allowing me to serve my country. Madam Speaker, before I commence my communication, I would also like to take this opportunity to bring condolences to the family of one Eugene Olson Campbell Sr., who passed away last week Friday. May his soul rest in peace. Madam Speaker, the Bahamas is respected around the world for the abundance of world-class athletes who hail from these pieces of rock we call the Bahamas. This country has found its way onto the medal podium from the time of the late Sir George in sailing and Thomas Robertson in track and field. These early sporting success opened the doors to others that dream of emulating those very success. Madam Speaker, I am extremely proud to be in the position that I sit as the minister responsible for sports, to applaud our latest athlete's performance, which once again demonstrated to the world why we are numero uno when it comes to sports. Madam Speaker, a small team of 5 athletes braved the unsettling European political climate to represent the Bahamas at the 2022 World Athletics Indoor Championships in Belgrade, Serbia. Madam Speaker, the team consisted of the following members: Donald Thomas, Shawnee Miller-Ubo, Devin Charlton, Anthony Strawn, Megan Moss. The team was coached by Dave Charlton and managed by Laura Charlton. Madam Speaker, the Bahamas' rich and continuous history of winning medals at international competitions was again on full display. It was just only for a few short moments ago that we recognized and celebrated the dominance of Shawnee Miller-Ubo as she effectively won the 400-meter gold medal at the Tokyo Olympics. Here we are again, proud as peacocks to congratulate her on yet another feather in her very large cap of awards. Madam Speaker, in 2014, she competed in her first senior level World Indoor Championships held in Sopot, Poland, where she ran away with the bronze medal in the 400 meters in a time of 52.06 seconds. With a craft more developed, Shawnee ran off with the indoor title in the women's 400 meters. This two-time Olympic champion winning time of 50.31 seconds is also her season's best and her first gold medal at the indoor championships. Madam Speaker, I'm also turning in an outstanding medal performance was Ms. Devonair Charlton. Competing in the 60-meter hurdles, Devonair stormed her way in the silver medal in a personal best and national record time of 7.81 seconds. Madam Speaker, I would also like to acknowledge the other members of the team that had an outstanding performance. Antonique Strawn advanced to the semifinals of her 60-meter sprint and placed fourth in the semifinals with a time of 7.17 seconds. Megan Moss, a collegiate runner, competed in her first senior international indoor championships in the first round of the 400 meters. Madam Speaker, I'm happy to announce the early return of both our championship medalists who will arrive today at 3 p.m. at the Lynden Pinling International Airport. Officers of my ministry and I will greet them at the airport, after which a courtesy call will be made on the Prime Minister. Also accompanying the return of the team members will be Olympic gold medalist Stephen Gardner. Although Stevie did not participate in the recent held indoor championships, he was quite busy blazing trails of his own. Starting his indoor campaign on the 14th of January, Stephen shattered the indoor world record in the 300 meters previously held by American Noah Lyles in a new time of 31.56 seconds. Competing at the 16th Annual Indoor Spring Break Classic in Puerto Rico, Stevie once again demonstrated in top form, winning the 200 meters in 20.28 seconds, which is the current world leading time in this event. Madam Speaker, following the visit of the Office of the Prime Minister, my ministry will host the athletes to a small reception at the Thomas A. Robinson Stadium at 5 p.m. this afternoon, which you are all invited. We look forward to their arrival and welcome you to join us as we celebrate our athletes, our athletic heroes. On another note, the Department of Sports and my ministry, in recognition with UNESCO International Day of Sports for Development and Peace, will recognize the 6th day of April 2022 as our National Day of Sports. This day will be used as an opportunity to promote the use of sports as a tool to advance the human rights and sustainable development under the theme Awakening Powered by Sports. The Department of Sports will host a series of sporting events inclusive of an obstacle course designed to foster team participation. The obstacle course is open to all, and we are inviting both public and private teams to join in on the competitive fun. A community force event on the 2nd of April 2022 is also being planned. Madam Speaker, our track athletes are not the only ones that have had a commendable performance this month, but we also recognize the achievement of NCAA basketball coach Yolette McPhee-McQuinn. Yolette is the first Bahamian woman to coach at a NCAA Division I program, and as was the first Black female head coach of Jacksonville College. Under her leadership, Ole Miss earned its first NCAA title bid in 15 years and made its first appearance since 2007-2008 season when they advanced to the Elite Eight in the SEC championships. Ole Miss was ranked number 3. Yolette also made her appearance as one of the 3 Black female coaches to advance to the conference finals. This year, the team earned an at-large bid as the number 7 seed at Wichita region. Regrettably, our team fell 75-61 against the number 10 seed, South Dakota. Madam Speaker, This is the awakening powered by sports, and I thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Member. Honorable Member for Central and South Eaglesville.
Would like to table my communication as well.
Yes.
And I also want to add to that we have also ordered books to present one to every school. And I will present the member for Angliston when those books arrive to ensure that every school in this Bahamas has a copy of this book as well.
Wonderful, Honorable Member. Order that the documents be brought up.
How many?
Order the documents to lie on the table. Further communication by ministers? The chair recognizes the Honorable Member for Marathon.
Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I rise in this honorable House today to give a communication regarding the Bahamas' participation in the Commission on the Status of Women Conference held in New York at the United Nations General Assembly, where I stood as the representative for the Bahamas. And I also rise to my feet today as we enter the final week of Women's History Month, filled with pride at how far we have come, but also concerned about the plight of women in the Bahamas. This month, we have had a number of opportunities to address the past, present, and future of women in the Bahamas. We have made a lot of progress. Unfortunately, we have also seen our fair share of tragedy. Just this month, we've seen terrible reminders of the physical and sexual violence that so many women, too many women, must struggle through. I know that everyone sitting in this honorable House today agrees that we must take swift action to address these issues and are supportive of the legislation to ensure that our women and girls are protected. It was within the context of all of these complex women's issues that I led a delegation during the past week to participate in the 66th session of the Commission on the Status of Women at the United Nations General Assembly in New York. Accompanying me were the Ministry of Social Services and Urban Development Permanent Secretary, Mr. Joel Lewis, the Director of Gender and Family Affairs, Dr. Calais Philippe, Acting Director of the Department of Social Services, Kim Sawyer, the Director of Urban Renewal Commission, Angelique Neen Dennis, the consultant of the Urban Renewal Foundation, Dr. Sheena Moss, and the operation manager at Urban Renewal Commission, Mrs. Lily Mae Lonely, and Mrs. Elaine Sands, the gender expert at the Gender and Family Affairs Unit. Madam Speaker, of special note to yourself and the other women seated here, as well as all women who have presented themselves as candidates throughout the country, there was a special session held to discuss ending violence against women in politics. It was no surprise at all to hear the appalling stories of sexism, harassment, and violence that women who enter politics experience around the globe. Many of these experiences sound eerily familiar to what women in the Bahamas have encountered. Vicious rumors and slanders and public rejections and cyberbullying and bias that hinder women from fulfilling their full potential. I was certainly inspired to continue to push for women to fully and meaningfully participate in politics. It is only through equal political representation that we will always ensure that women's rights and women's issues are given the attention and resources that they so deserve. I fully support the United Nations plans to level the playing field in politics. And I also encourage this administration to continue to do all that we can to assist in removing the structural and social barriers that prevent the goal of leveling the playing field in politics from being fulfilled. We won't stop until the glass ceiling comes crashing down and women can enter politics fully empowered. Madam Speaker, during this trip, I met with the U.S. representative to the United Nations, Ambassador Linda Thomas Greenfield, and we discussed women's issues, but we also discussed broad issues relative to U.S. and the Bahamas relations, as well as the need to address climate change, the U.S. commitment to providing free vaccines to the world. And Ambassador Thomas Greenfield also thanked the Bahamas for in its support of the UN General Assembly resolution to condemn Russia's aggressions against Ukraine. I also had the pleasure to meet with the French Minister Delegate for Gender Equality, Diversity, and Equal Opportunities, Elizabeth Moreno, along with officials from Mexico, the Maldives, and Morocco, to discuss our cooperation to advance women's rights around the world. I engaged in a plethora of bilateral meetings with our regional counterparts, including Guyana, St. Vincent and the Grenadines, Belize, and so many others. Madam Speaker, I was honored to have the opportunity to address the General Assembly in my capacity as Minister of State in the Ministry of Social Services and Urban Development on the theme, Achieving Gender Equality and the Empowerment of Women and Girls in the context of climate change, environmental, and disaster risk reduction policies and programs. I spoke to the reality of continued inequality and the fact that climate change and natural disasters that follow it are projected to disproportionately impact women and girls, especially in countries that are already very socially and economically vulnerable. I spoke to the damage done by Hurricane Dorian and the continued threat posed by climate change. This threat is exacerbated by the fact that the Bahamas is experiencing inadequately recognized resource challenges that make it difficult to adequately address our climate change vulnerabilities and the plight of women and girls. The fact that the UN classified the Bahamas as high income to receive non-reimbursable funding because of our relatively high GDP per capita is a problem, and it must be addressed. In my contribution, I was able to highlight the high cost of living and economic inequality that impact the lives of everyday Bahamians. These statistics may not be reflected in the GDP per capita, but that does not mean that the struggle isn't real. Madam Speaker, because it certainly is. I implore the United Nations to move towards a multi-dimensional vulnerability index as a more complete measurement to support countries like ours with non-reimbursable funding, especially when it comes to providing resources and interventions for our vulnerable population of women and girls. If we are to do our part in meeting the global benchmarks for sustainable development goals, this kind of assistance is desperately needed. Madam Speaker, it was an eventful trip that I believe allowed the Bahamas' voice to be heard on the world's largest stage in the conversation on women's rights and violence against women. We must continue to push for equality. We must continue to fight oppression, sexism, and abuse. And we must not rest until our women and little girls are living in a world that is truly equal. It is only then that we can say our work is done. Madam Speaker, thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Member. Order that the document be brought up. Order the document do lie on the table. Further communication by Minister? No more communication. Communications by the clerk? Messages from the Governor General? Messages from the Senate? Motions for leave of absence, leave to resign, seat and writs? Presentations of petitions? Presentations of reports of committees? Adoption of reports of committees? First reading of bills? The chair recognizes the Honorable Member for Exuma and Ragged Island.
Madam Speaker, I beg leave to introduce and have read for the first time a copy of the following. A bill for an act to amend the Anti-Terrorism Act to empower the Financial Intelligence Unit to impose an administrative penalty on a financial institution who contravenes any provision thereof.
If they are seconded. Order. Thank you. For the first reading of bill, it's been moved and seconded. It has been moved and seconded. It has been moved and seconded that the bill be read for the first time and tabled. As many are in favor will remain seated. Those opposed will stand. Order the bill be read. Lay on the table.
A bill for an act to amend the Anti-Terrorism Act to empower the Financial Intelligence Unit to impose an administrative penalty on any financial institution who contravenes any provisions thereof.
For the first reading, the chair recognizes the Honorable Member for Exuma.
Madam Speaker, I beg leave to introduce and have read for the first time a copy of the following. A bill for an act to amend the Register of Beneficial Ownership Act 2018.
Thank you, Honorable Member. Is there a seconder? Second.
One more.
It has been moved and seconded that the bill be read for the first time and tabled. All those in favor will remain seated. Those opposed will stand. Order that the bill be read for the first time.
A bill for an act to amend the Register of Beneficial Ownership Act 2018.
Thank you. For the first readings,
I beg leave to introduce and have read for the first time a copy of the following. A bill for an act to amend the Proceeds of Crime Act.
is there a seconder? Thank you, Honorable Member. It has been moved and seconded that the bill be read for the first time and tabled. All those in favor shall remain seated. Those opposed will stand. Order that the bill be read for the first time.
A bill for an act to amend the Proceeds of Crime Act.
For the first reading, the chair recognizes the Honorable Member for Fox Hill.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I want to introduce and read for the first time the Telus Bethel Pension Bill 2022. If I can have a second.
Thank you, Honorable Member. It has been moved and seconded that the bill be read for the first time and tabled. All those in favor shall remain seated. Those opposed will stand. Order that the bill be read for the first time and tabled.
A
bill for an act to provide for a pension for Tellis Bethel, retired Commodore of the Royal Bahamas Defense Force.
Further first readings? Thank you, Honorable Member. Second reading in Committee of Bills.
Madam Speaker, just before we begin the second readings, we intend to debate the readings of the provisions for pensions. There's several on the agenda, and we intend to debate as a compendium. We also wish to add, with the permission of the Leader of the Opposition, we have received approval to include the Tellis Bethel bill that was just read for the first time, and it will be included in the debate.
Thank you, Honorable Member. Honorable Member? Do you agree?
Agreed, Madam Speaker.
Thank you, Honorable Member. Second reading in Committee of Bills. The Chair recognizes the Honorable Member for Foxhill.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. So I'd like to move the second reading and committal of the following bills. Debate the following bills, but I'll move one. There's a bill for an act to provide for the continuous service in the public service of Raymond Mackey. And then I'll come to a bill for an act to provide for the continuous service in the public service of Mary Mitchell. And then there's a bill for an act to provide for the continuous service in the public service of Japheth Edison Delaval. And we just read for the first time the Tellis Bethel Pension Bill 2022. Essentially, Madam, these follow a similar pattern. There is a general rule in the public service that you ought to serve 30 years continuously in order to get a full pension. And if you fall short of that number of years, you don't get a pension, you simply get a gratuity. Or a reduced pension. So many of these people have given, all of them have given important service to the country. And it was felt in these circumstances, some were decided by our predecessors, and and another was decided by us. But it's all a similar pattern to give them the right to have a full pension so that it's deemed to have continuous service, even though they had breaks in service. And there were special circumstances to deal with Mr. Tellis Bethel, who served as the Commodore of the Defense Force. So Mr. Raymond Mackey was the Deputy Superintendent of Police. He enlisted in the Royal Bahamas Police Force on the 7th of July, 1965, resigned on the 7th of July, 1968, after completing 3 years of service. He then left and was gainfully employed at the Lucayan Beach Hotel and Casino in Freeport as a Director of Security. But on the 4th of December, 1968, he re-enlisted in the Royal Bahamas Police Force, and he worked in the police force on the 17th of June, 1996, when he resigns. So the period of service at that time amounted to 27 years and 6 months. So he's short by 6 months. Now, we thought that we had come up with a generic solution to this because there are a number of requests that happen about bridging of service where you have these disabilities. And so we passed an act when I was last Public Service Minister and regulations to permit the Minister for the Public Service by administrative fiat to bridge the service. The gap can't be more than 2 years, and there are a number of other conditions. So the advice I got at the time is this would resolve Mr. Mackey's problem. But it turned out, I lost office, and then it turned out when it was not completed that the act did not have retrospective effect. So we acted in vain in that case. The point is now, this special bill, I'm advised, would resolve that problem. So the bill would, in effect, say that he worked for 30 years, or he's deemed to have had 30 years continuous service, and then you recalculate what his gratuity and pension would be as at the date of his resignation in 1996. So that's the advice I have on that one. Mr. Mackey, I've known for quite a long time. He was a very distinguished police officer. He now is a minister of religion, lives in Bering Point in central Andros, and is also taught me how to fly fish. So I must declare my interest. Sorry? No, I can't fly fish, but he tried. Yes. I just couldn't get the hang of it. My hand-eye coordination is totally off. I had a nephew. My nephew was with me. He was 15 years old. He got it in 30 seconds, and I was there struggling. So I said to Superintendent Mackey, "That's why you're here. Just put the bait on the thing and put it in the water." I did catch a fish, though. Yes, right. Yeah, so anyway, that is Superintendent Mackey. To turn to the other individuals, let's talk about J. Edison Delaval, who many may remember was once the controller of customs. So Mr. Delaval was employed in the public service at the Princess Margaret Hospital for a period of 9 years. Namely from the 1st of June 1947 until his resignation on the 21st of August 1956. He then rejoined the public service on the 6th of August 1957, less than a year after his resignation, and thereafter served in various posts in the public service until his eventual retirement in 1992. So as far back as the 3rd of June 1980, Mr. Delaval had requested his service to be bridged, and he renewed his application 85, 91, 92. He retired in 92 and was granted a pension computed in respect of the latter period of 35 years continuous service with no account being taken of his initial 9 years. So he made a request in 93, and there was a bill drafted in 93, but the bill was never moved in Parliament. So this bill is coming back. His estate has asked for us to move this, and we've agreed. And so the service will be bridged so that he would, in effect, get the 40 years. Now, I need to explain that you can get a pension at 30 years, but the highest pension you get if you serve continuously for 40 years. So he has a break in service, and this would make 40 years, and then they would recalculate the pension and gratuity in favor of his estate. So that is Mr. Delaval was a successor to the late John Rowe, and he served, gave distinguished service as a public servant, and it was the discretion of the government that in these circumstances that was the way to deal with that particular issue. The third person is Mary Mitchell. No relation. Now, Ms. Mitchell served as the treasurer of the Bahamas, and she joined the public service on the 17th of November, 1975. Left the public service on the 29th of February 1988 to complete her professional certification in accounting, and then she returned to the public service on the 3rd of September 1990. So the Mary Mitchell Pension Bill provides that the period from the 17th of November 1975 to the 29th of February 1988, when she was not in the public service, should be taken into account so that it is deemed continuous service with the period served in the public service beginning the 3rd of September 1990 to the date of her retirement. Again, the bill deems the continuous service, and the pension will therefore be calculated on the total period as if there were no break. Next person is Mr. Tellis Bethel. Mr. Bethel served as commander of the Royal Bahamas Defense Force before retiring. And this provides for a pension to be granted to Mr. Bethel at a rate provided in Section 5A of the Pensions Act, which is the rate of 1/720th of that person's pensionable entitlements in respect of each month of pensionable service completed as if that person had served for 40 years. Say that the pension payable to that person pursuant to Section 5A shall not exceed 2/3 of the highest pensionable emoluments paid to the person during his period of pensionable service. So again, the disability here was he served less than the 25 years in the Defense Force, and you were supposed to serve at least 7 years as Commodore of the Defense Force in order to get the full pension, and he served just short of the 7 years when he took up a new post. So this is amending the law to permit him to get a pension as if he had served the full qualifying period for being Commodore of the Defense Force and serving on the Defense Force. That's the intent of these pieces of legislation. I think that covers everybody. Ms. Mitchell, Mr. Bethel, Mr. Delaval, and Mr. Mackey. Now, this, I'm sure that this will come up from time to time, and I would only say that there was I think it was called the Social Securities Commission. I think it was headed by the Reverend Alfred Stewart during the Christie term 2002-2007. And they were asked to do a comprehensive review of our Social Security and safety network. And at that time, they reviewed the national insurance legislation and made certain recommendations about pensions. We now have Social Security legislation in the form of national insurance. That came into force in 1974. We now have national health legislation, which came into effect in our last term of office. And I've often argued, pursuant to the recommendations of that commission, that there needs to be national pension legislation. One of the reasons why the government service is an attractive service for many employees is because of the pension which you get at the end of your service. And that pension, no matter where you move in the public service, or even when you go from a corporation to the service or the service to a corporation, the pension is portable. The difficulty that the commission pointed out is that the pensions of the government are unfunded mandates in the sense that they are not contributory pensions. Unlike the pensions for members of parliament and senators, those are contributory pensions. And right now, you know, there is a complaint because the pensions of those who served as ambassadors during the last term, their pensions as members of parliament were suspended during the time they served as ambassadors. This is wrong because this is their money. And so it really should be paid back to them. But what the commission was indicating is that there should be national pension legislation, which is contributory across the board, and that the government itself should have a contributory pension scheme, which would be funded in part by the employee and by the employer. And this would result in the liabilities for pensions declining over the years as new employees come into the system and contribute to a pension as opposed to one which is unfunded. That's in the future, but we are pleased to be able to assist in resolving these disabilities for these public servants who have given distinguished service to the country. And I so move.
Thank you, Honourable Member. Is there a seconder? The Chair recognizes the Honourable Member for Freetown.
Madam Speaker, it gives me pleasure to second these 4 bills. And may I say that as a legislator, one will have to look at pieces of legislation as the honorable member for Fox Hill had indicated, as to whether it's efficacious to achieve the objective. The objective was attempted once before, and the legislation did not achieve it. These 4 pieces of legislation cannot be said to have any deficiencies on that level. They will accomplish what is intended. The other reason that one may look critically at legislation is if one has a point of principle against the objective of the legislation. If that is so, there can be meaningful debate engaged on the merits of the objectives of the pieces of legislation. Bearing in mind the subjects of these 4 bills, I would trust and hope that there is no controversy, no debate over the principles underlying these bills. As Fox Hill has said, Raymond Mackey is an accomplished policeman, put his life on the line for us over and over and over again. And this is merely addressing a technical glitch that was to be remedied that wasn't. I would hope that nobody suggests that Raymond Mackey is not deserving of this. Mary Mitchell, from the information that I saw, and I cannot personally vouch for it, but from the evidence that I saw, the break was occasioned by her improving herself by education that made her more serviceable to the public service. That must be a commendable thing, and the public benefited from it. Again, I trust that there is no debate over whether Mary Mitchell is deserving of this. Edison Delaval speaks for itself, where the accumulated time is far beyond the benefit that he is receiving by this bill. And I trust, again, that there is no debate, no controversy over his being deserving of this. Retired Commodore Tallis Bethel, again, somebody who put their life on the line for us over and repeatedly on the high seas. And again, I trust and I hope that there is no controversy over his being deserving of this. Public servants serve whoever is the government of the day because they serve the Bahamian people. This is but a recognition of the long and stellar good service of these individuals. And I would hasten to say that it must be good service, because if you don't give good service, you don't get a pension, regardless of how long you serve. If one reads the Pension Act, that would be obvious. And so, Madam Speaker, I do not intend to belabor this address. Having reviewed the bills, they are effective to do what they're intended to do. And for my part, I harbor no equivocation that the 4 former public servants being addressed by them are well deserving of this act. Raymond Mackey, I know personally, and I've spoken to him on many occasions, and he spoke of the real hurt that he was occasioned by being denied this when he had given so much of himself for this country. And I'm personally pleased to be able to, in particular, second his bill. And I so move, Madam Speaker.
Thank you, honorable members. It has been moved and seconded that the following bill be read a second time and committed. A bill for an act to provide for the continuous service in the public service of Mary Mitchell. Asmini. The chair recognizes the honorable member for St. Barnabas.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. As I rise to my feet, Madam Speaker, let me give thanks to Almighty God, who continues to remind me of the love that He has for me, has for all of us. And as it is often said, remind me that I need Him just as much on my best day as I need Him on my worst day. I thank Him for what He continues to bless me with. In particular, as I often say when I rise to my feet, to be a citizen of the greatest nation on earth, the Commonwealth of the Bahamas. Before I get into my thoughts on the pieces of legislation, Madam Speaker, I think it's vitally important to put before this House and for our contemplation as members of Parliament the situation that we're dealing with crime in our country. Even as we assembled here this morning, you had another shooting in the Carmichael Road area, I believe. Madam Speaker, we are being tested at this moment. We are being tested as a deliberative body. We are being tested as leaders. And let me just say this, Madam Speaker, and I've been consistent with this, that I do not believe that crime should be used as a political football. I do not believe that that should be the case. It's very important to state that. But I believe, and many Bahamians believe, we are a nation in crisis right now, Madam Speaker. We are a nation in crisis. And the Bahamian people are sincerely asking every day, every hour as the pictures go through social media, and as persons in their communities surround the riddled bodies of young men in our country in particular. They're asking a sincere question about where is the plan to address these issues. And that's not a political statement. That's not a political statement. Where are the plans to address these issues? I know that the honorable member for Freetown in his communication talked about a number of things. But the Bahamian people want to know, what are we going to do in the main? Because definitely all of us would agree in here that we are not paralyzed to make some effort to arrest these issues in a meaningful way. And there is no doubt, Madam Speaker, there is no doubt that these are complex issues and requires the inclusion of political, civic, community leaders. But the Bahamian people are asking, where is the plan as this carnage continues? We're talking about we're talking about the murders. We're talking about the murders in the last, 10 murders, 9 murders in the last 2 weeks? And if we sit here and it doesn't capture our conscience in a way to deal with this issue, every day, communities are in fear. The question the Bahamian people are asking, what is the plan from the government as it relates to this. What is the plan? And again, that's not a political statement, but at the end of the day, the government of the day, whoever it may be, has a responsibility to act and engage in a certain way. And I know that the member from Marco City has conveyed this before, as do I, and I'm sure all of my colleagues. However, we can participate in this discussion about what we can do and have a collaborative effort and our collective efforts to deal with this. We need to. Every day, in my constituency alone in the last 2 weeks, I've had 2 murders, Madam Speaker, 2 murders. 2 persons were shot, actually 3, because eventually the other young man who was rushed to the hospital succumbed to his injuries. It is a problem, and the Bahamian people are asking. I say again, it's not a political statement. The Bahamian people are asking, what is our plan? They're asking, what is the plan of the government? Yeah, but but honorable member for Fox Hill, this ain't an issue we could kick down the road, kick the can down the road. They want to know answers now. They want to know answers now. So we have to do something, Madam Speaker. We owe it to the Bahamian people. We owe it to the loved ones of the many family members who've been affected by this every single day. Communities are being rocked by gunshots over and over. Last night, I went into my constituency Madam Speaker, and people are tired and in fear. Tired and in fear. And I'm sure all members here who these incidents have impacted their constituency feel the same way. But the question is, where is the plan to start to solve these issues, even if these plans include the participation of others, including members of the opposition? So the Bahamian people want to know, where are the plans to address this menace that continues to wreak havoc every single day? Murder last night on Wolf Road in my constituency, and an incident this morning as we assembled here. When will it stop? The Bahamian people are asking, when will it stop? And I heard the member for Freetown, who I respect very much, talk about the political directorate essentially having a hands-off approach to how the Royal Bahamas Police Force deals with its affairs. But it can be off hands to the point where the government has no influence to ensure that the Bahamian people should readily expect to be in a peaceful and tranquil society, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, as I turn to...
The chair recognizes the honourable member for Fort Charlotte.
Madam Speaker, the honourable member for Freetown, to my recollection, did not say that the executive has to take a hands-off approach. What the honourable member stated is that the law passed by this honourable House reposes in the Commissioner of Police the responsibility of putting forward a policing plan. That doesn't say, or that is not to say that the executive arm of the government, the minister, is not involved. There is a separation, but both the commissioner and the minister and the cabinet work hand in hand in terms of the provision of the resources so that this plan can be carried out, in terms of the national development plan. So I just want to point out that the honourable member for Freetown was merely indicating that on the tactical level, It is the Commissioner of Police purview. That is the law.
Thank you, Honorable Member. Okay. Chair recognizes the Honorable Member for
Madam Speaker, let me just thank you, Honorable Member for Fort Charlotte. Let me just emphasize that what the Bahamian people feel has not happened is a clearly articulated plan to address the issue of the murders in this country over the last few weeks and months. And again, I would state, whatever that plan may be in its inclusivity, it is something that the Bahamian people want to hear. Let me also just state for the record as well, I hold the Royal Bahamas Police Force in high regard. My grandfather, who passed a year and a half ago, was a superintendent, and he was in charge of the police armory. And I will say, Madam Speaker, it was a privilege and an honor to grow up in a household where my grandfather, and as many may know, my uncle rise to the position of Deputy Commissioner of Police. So I just want the Bahamian people to know and law enforcement to know that, yes, sir, absolutely, absolutely. And that every day I saw the sacrifices made by men and women of the Royal Bahamas Police Force. My stepfather, who's been in my life from I was 6, was on the police force for some close to 40 years. Close to 40 years. And so we know, yes, and so we know each of us has a family member or a friend who's in the Royal Bahamas Police Force. And so we know the sacrifices. And so I want to be clear in stating that we are aware of the sacrifices that they make. We continue to support them. But that's why it's even more incumbent upon the government, we feel, to do what we can to arrest these issues. And again, I would say, if we continue to allow this to happen in the country and seemingly not address it with effective measures, again, in a collaborative way, then it should be unsettling for us to walk in here as parliamentarians every day, representing the people that we represent, and to go back into our constituencies and not be able to say, here is a clearly articulated plan that the government has presented that involves community stakeholders and so forth and so on. Madam Speaker, I turn now to the Compendium of Bills. I think as the member for Freetown would have said that these aren't controversial. They are needed. And I do believe that any pieces of legislation, any policy that allows justice, if you will, allows justice and just practices to be formulated on behalf of civil servants and the people who give so much to the Commonwealth of the Bahamas, and in respects these 4 persons, it should be done. No issue there at all. I would just hasten to say that the key thing now is other persons who are in that category, let's do our best to make sure that their situation is remedied as well. Right? Madam Speaker, with that, thank you very much.
Thank you, Honorable Member. Asmini?
Obliged.
The Chair recognizes the Honorable Member for St. Anne's.
I'm obliged, Madam Speaker. As member for the great constituency of St. Anne's, it is my honor to add to today's debate contribution. The 3 bills previously tabled, together with the one tabled today for former Royal Bahamas Defense Force officer and Commodore Tellis Bethel, all come under what I would suggest, Madam Speaker, are amendments that should be considered to be made to the Pensions Act. Mr. Raymond Mackey, former police officer, well known to the member for Freetown, has, according to the member from Freetown, communicated to him the hardship felt by not being previously recognized to receive his pension due to his public service. You also have Mr. Delaval, former employee representative at Customs, and Mary Mitchell. Each one of them, by these bills, are seeing their periods of public service joined together as one continuous period so that they would be entitled to receive their pension under the Pensions Act. Section 24 of the Pensions Act is identified in each of these bills, and I would suggest that the government review the Pensions Act so that persons in these categories, public servants in general, when they enter into public service, they'll know that there's an opportunity for their periods of public service to be joined together and thereby entitling them to receive their pensions, and they're not being automatically disqualified if for one reason or another, a personal life decision, they step away from public service and come back to it. I think that it would be beneficial not only for those persons that work in the public service to know that there's a possibility for their interrupted periods of employment to be seen as one period and entitle them to the pension in the future, and for there to be conditions so that they know if it's a step away from public service because of these reasons and they come back, they'll be considered to have that pension, have that period of employment seen as one. Or if they step away for a particular reason that is not within the available discretion under the Pensions Act, that they won't be considered. So that when they do step away, they'll have to make the necessary arrangements that no longer factor into their retirement receipt of a pension under the Pensions Act. Madam Speaker, I don't have any objections to these bills today, whether it's the one for Raymond Mackey, for Mary Mitchell, or Japheth Delaval, or Telus Bethel. But what I am seeing as representative for the great constituency of St. Anne's is a lot of attention is being given to the pensions of our civil servants. During the Christmas holiday period, there was an increase that some 7,180 retired public servants would have been entitled to receive, whether it's increments of $50 to $100, depending on their current pension amount. And we've also heard in this House, as well as in the press, statements from ministers that there's consideration being given to a livable wage. What I don't yet see, Madam Speaker, is where we're giving recognition to the revenue creators, the persons that are operating in businesses, the persons that are employed in businesses, the persons that are creating the revenue that goes into the revenue collectors' hands. And when I say revenue collectors in this case, I'm generally referring to the civil servants. I know that not all work at Inland Revenue, but they all are on the end where revenue is collected and dispersed throughout our country. I think that this government and future governments need to give proper attention to the revenue creators, the non-public civil servants, so that they can see an increase in their pensions. It's important now more than ever, and the importance is recognized by the fact that we are considering a livable wage. There must also be, Madam Speaker, I would suggest a livable pension for the revenue creators. Madam Speaker, I don't have anything further to contribute at this time. I'm most appreciative to the members of the government, to my fellow opposition members, to all that are here when we're meeting, doing the people's business, and getting on with governance in this country. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Honorable Member. As many? The Chair recognizes the Honorable Member for Marco City.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Let me first say a special thanks to Almighty God for this opportunity, to the residents of Marco City, to express my gratitude for your continued support and encouragement. I would like also, Madam Speaker, before commenting on the bill before us, to go back to the recent debate that we engaged in with respect to the midterm budget. I will have more to say on that in the afternoon session, but would from the outset like to encourage the government to certainly answer some of the questions that were raised last week and the weeks before that have not yet been answered. It was a straightforward question by some members of the public and by the opposition. Did the government engage in the September and December trades to support the hedge program? Because it is the view that at least $50 million of expenses have been heaped upon the Bahamian people by the failure of this administration taking the technical advice of
The Chair
the
recognizes
former
the Honorable
board.
Member for Fort Charlotte.
Madam Speaker, I rise on a point of order
Yes.
because the rules of debate of this honorable House, first of all, it says that no member can speak more than once on a question. And number two, it says at subsection 13, a member may not refer to a debate or proceeding of either House in a current session unless the chair determines it. In other words, the question has already been put. The honorable member has had an afterthought. So he comes in another debate with the afterthought and is seeking to raise a question when the rules with respect to questions are clear.
Thank you, Honorable Member.
Yes, Madam Speaker, I would make only one short point to the member for Fort Charlotte. It is impossible for what I just raised to be an afterthought when this matter was raised directly with the member of Fort Charlotte who gave the most inadequate answer in the last sitting of the House. I'll leave that there, but this is not an afterthought. We litigated this matter when we last met, and unfortunately you were unable to address it.
The Chair recognizes the Honorable Member for Fort Charlotte.
The honorable member of Marco City has just illustrated the violation upon which my point of order is based.
Thank you, Honorable Member.
Madam Speaker, when we last met, this matter was in fact addressed, and this afternoon, again, I'm hoping that this question raised, as well as this question I'm about to put, would also be answered. Madam Speaker, one of the comments shared in the wrap-up to the last debate had to do with whether or not the Red Cross participated in the food program. I believe there's clear evidence that they did, and the Prime Minister has put on the record that they did not. I'm wondering if the Prime Minister would wish to just correct the record in light of new information that he may have been provided with.
Honourable Member, allow me to apprise myself of the situation. I'm not aware of what we speak of. Let's move forward with this particular debate, and we'll revisit that.
Okay. No, wonderful, Madam Speaker. We will in the afternoon session. Madam Speaker, we join with the government with respect to the compendium of legislation as it relates to pensions. Madam Speaker, this is a matter that has been lingering for quite some time. I believe the legislation, at least several of them that are here, minus, I believe, Tellis Bethel, would have been drafted prior to this election. So fundamentally, we don't have an issue with these bills. I would ask that the minister in his wrap-up address several issues, however. But to be clear, let me say that I'm in support, Marco City supports the matter as it relates to Raymond Mackey, to J. Edison Delaval, Mary Mackey, and Tellis, Mary Mitchell, and Tellis Bethel. I believe that there are some matters that the minister will clarify relative to at least one of the members in terms of the difference in how short that particular person was of the years. However, I think I know a bit about the circumstances that impacted him, and I think he's provided outstanding service to the Commonwealth of the Bahamas. What wasn't made clear by the minister, by the member for Fox Hill as yet, is the issue as to whether or not the adjustments being made in these bills, does that provide a global solution? Because I think that's ultimately, I think, what is necessary. And if you might speak to whether or not, if the law reform is able to then review the legislation so that we are then put in a position to address the issue of those persons whose names do not appear today. Because what we have done is singled out 4 persons. Clearly, there are more persons, many more persons possibly, that fall in this category. Persons who have written asking for their service to be abridged. So I think that's a better way to phrase it. Are there ways in which law reform might be helpful to the government in making recommendations that could have solved these particular matters so that individually they need not have been brought to the House, or for those persons who are still in this category, whether or not we might be able to solve their particular issues. And so, for example, I believe that you also have another matter related to John Pinder, and to indicate whether or not, for example, would that have been one of those situations that could have qualified. Sorry, I should have prefaced that by saying another matter is your good friend from Fox Hill, John Pinder, and wonder whether or not his matter would have fallen in roughly in this category. It's different, okay. So it would just be useful to hear about those matters during the wrap-up. But we certainly support. It would have been wonderful for the Mr. Delaval's matter to have been addressed much earlier. Unfortunately, it will go to his estate. But I think many of us know that family exceptionally well and the incredible contributions that they have made. Since we are talking about labor-related matters, I have had conversations with more than one minister on the other side with respect to island administrators who are presently, a few of them feel as if they are in no man or woman's land. Some of them, unfortunately, are being redeployed in other ministries, even though they have gone through the process And the information that I have, they are suitably qualified to function as island administrators, but nevertheless, they are being redeployed elsewhere. It would be wonderful to get clarification on what are the circumstances that have dictated persons who went through the training, some of whom are certainly more qualified than some persons who are presently being brought back. And we could talk in greater details about each of those persons, but I would rather just really hear the explanation. There may be a logical explanation. However, we are concerned that a number of administrators are indicating they are presently displaced. It will affect their benefits over time being redeployed. In fact, when they came into the island administrative stream, there were, in fact, certain things that they forewent, that they no longer have access to being sent back to various ministries. And it would be useful just to hear the explanation publicly, and then, of course, in the afternoon session, I would love to further that discussion. But the island administrators, there is a concern. I believe that 5 of them or so are affected. And since, unfortunately, politics enter into the picture quite often, we also know that all 5 of them, they have different political persuasions. And so, yes, they do. And so it's interesting. I would like to hear whether or not the minister or the minister with responsibility for local government might address that issue. Secondly, yeah, that's what I thought until we found out that we had a chairman who is in fact the member of Parliament for Fox Hill who is in fact the head of the public service, which is neutral. A chairman is running that area, so so neutrality obviously does not apply with the Progressive Liberal Party. The other point on the labor front is in road traffic. There seemed to be a substantial amount of dis-ease with respect to several veterans of road traffic who are being redeployed in other areas. And I know I need not litigate the matter in detail. I believe the letters have been sent to our Prime Minister, to the Minister, to a number of persons. So I know that the details have been sent. And so again, it would be wonderful if we're able to speak to that. I understand that there have been a redeployment of Defense Force officers who now have a substantial amount of influence in road traffic. Some of the veterans are laying claim that they are being redeployed elsewhere, and that they believe it has the net effect of taking some folks with institutional memory who have skills, and they are now being put in areas where obviously there's a learning curve, and that road traffic, which can be even more effective with their involvement, is not benefiting from their services. So it would be wonderful again to shed some light on this matter, but even more importantly, in the case of the island administrators and in the case of road traffic, to have a staff meeting to resolve these issues. So we'd like to hear, what the facts are in these matters. There might be a logical explanation, but it would be useful to hear what the facts are. Madam Speaker, the issue raised by the member for St. Barnabas is an important one. I've said in previous debates that it is important for us, while in opposition, to be measured and honest in our pronouncements, because it's very possible you become the government, and in the Bahamas, it's very likely you become the government, and then you are faced with the tough decisions that have to be made. And one of the reasons we see some past administrations, their leadership flip-flop on issues, is because their initial position was not a principled one. It was the politics of expedience. And when they've gotten in the chair, they are unfortunately they are unable to maintain the position they held while in opposition. But I'm advised that it is a new day. On this side, it certainly is. And we've been very consistent in this parliament. If you listen to the comments being made as it relates to crime, we have been very consistent, these members who've spoken on this particular subject, that we believe that addressing criminality in the Bahamas, particularly acts of violence, is a shared responsibility. And it's most unfortunate that as I listen to some pronouncements from the government, which seeks to now mouth this long-known fact that it is a shared responsibility. It does take a village to raise a child. But many of the players, or several of the players, were there when billboards were being erected around the Bahamas, touting the amount of murders that occurred under the Free National Movement's watch. And we said it was a bad idea, that it was unfortunate. And to speak to criticisms raised by some members opposite, when I referenced the approach to COVID about be careful of the message you send to the international community. And these are veterans who were there when the message was being sent to the international community that there is a tremendous amount of violent crimes in the Bahamas. And so here we are again with an upsurge, an uptick in violent crimes. We will not take that kind of position. We're simply saying we are prepared to work with the government, but it would be helpful to know what are the particular initiatives, approaches that's being taken by the government to address the surge in crime. While we're talking about pensions this morning, which is very important, and it is extremely important what we're going to discuss this afternoon with respect to the amendments to the National Honors Bill. Parliaments of countries around the world ought to be agile and nimble and responsive to present conditions on the ground. And while there are many issues on the front line, certainly top of mind for many Bahamians, outside of the issue of the inflationary pressures that are being put on our people, the difficulty in terms of affording much of the basic necessities, top of mind is this issue of violence and, of course, the fear of violence. And so it is important that when we come to the Parliament, that we have a discussion about some of these hot button, top of mind issues that the public is concerned about. And so it is important to hear what that plan is. We're aware that I believe that the Commissioner of Police meets with the Prime Minister. I believe it's once per week, probably on Monday morning, first thing. So there is an ongoing discussion with the executive and the police force.
I think there's a new day.
It's a new day. Okay, no problem. Whichever day that is, we know that there are ongoing discussions. And so when we reference the Royal Bahamas Police Force crime plan, every one of them that has been produced have been produced with the input or influence of the executive of the day. And so it is impossible to extricate the vision of the police force from that of the vision and strategic plan, inclusive of available resources of the government of the day. So the government has a say in how these things happen. And so it is important for us at this juncture where we are losing a number of our children, our young men and women, in our homes, in our communities. It is important for us to govern in a way that we recognize what we are up against. One of the statements I made while I sat on that side in 2019 was that we have to govern with a sense of urgency. We're sitting on that side. We were in government. We have to. It changed from time to time. My point is, we have to govern with a sense of urgency. It was true then, it's true now. This administration, the public, it's almost like running track and field. I believe the Minister of Sports was in here. When I went to house sport, sometimes you'd see a guy running the 200 or see a young lady running the 400. And they are all out. All their facial expression, their body motion show that they are giving it their all. They come in dead last. And they come in dead last by far. But people still was supportive because they could tell this person is giving it their all. The problem I sense in Bahamian politics is that the creature comforts of the positions that we get from time to time lull us into, some of us, and just to be fair, into a sense of comfort with business as usual. And we don't govern as if we are in crisis. And we were, in my estimation, in crisis for a better part of the last 4.5 years. And we are still dealing with some crisis issues. And so the kinds of issues we address when we come in, the timeliness of addressing them, like right now, addressing this issue of the carnage that we are experiencing is a timely issue. So amidst everything else that we do, because we have to operate on multiple levels, address multiple issues simultaneously, that's the responsibility of governance. But we also have to pivot given when we detect that there is some dis-ease or restlessness among the population. And certainly, the issue of crime is one of those issues. The issue of where people are going to get resources from to face the heightened prices that they're facing around food, around medicine, around baby products, all of these. And what the public does recognize is that in here, we have insurance. If you're in cabinet, you have a better insurance. So they recognize that we could come in and have fights sometimes over non-relevant things to their condition, because at the end of the day, I would say 9 out of 10 of us, just to be fair, if there's somebody who doesn't fall in this category, though I doubt it, but 9 of us are going home to a house that we are not threatened to have to move from next week or week after next. And so either the mortgage is paid, and maybe there's 1 or 2 cases where somebody's still renting, but for the most part, the bills are paid, the insurance is available, so persons don't have to negotiate whether or not they're gonna skip the long lines or the wait at PMH and go to another location. They don't have an option but to go to PMH or to go to the RAN because their conditions are different. And all I'm concerned about at this moment is there doesn't seem to be a sense of urgency. One of the untruths that's regularly told in this parliament by a few members of the government is, oh, look at what we have done in 176 days. This time, in 2017, they were on vacation. I mean, if I spoke patois, I would have said lie to Mattel, but I wouldn't do that. I believe in Bahamianese, but I would say this. Go and find the record where members of the administration that I'd served in were on vacation. Now, if you want to say the House recessed for a particular period, that's acceptable. But cabinet ministers were on vacation? No, they were working. Members of parliament was working. So let's not get cute about what you're saying. We were working every day as members of parliament, as ministers of the government, and the quality of that representation, the public has made its determination about it. But let's not try to set a false narrative when you seek to compare what you would have done. And so again, multiple false narratives. And so it's very. So again, you pick the subject and I'll tell you if it's false or not, because I would try to be precise. Okay, no problem, and I'll answer each of them. So, Well, again, you said there's a new day over here, there's a new day here. Those kinds of campaigns run by F&M or PLP are inappropriate. They are inappropriate. Oh, please. Some ran official campaigns, and I was victimized by some of those, and I had to call members on your side directly. And so I'm saying it didn't make sense then. It didn't make sense then when it was done, if it was done by the F&M or the PLP. And so what I'm saying is don't put the label.
Member, address the chair.
I'm sorry?
Address the chair. Don't
I'm
get
sorry.
don't get into argument.
I'm sorry. You said I'm sorry. Did you say members address the chair?
I said member.
No, that you should pluralize that. No, you should pluralize that.
He's speaking from his chair. Okay.
No, it's the same principle. It's the spirit.
What spirit?
It's the spirit of the law. I know we've gotten quite legalistic. And we've gotten quite legalistic, and Fort Charlotte has been designated as the enforcer of parliamentary procedures.
The chair recognizes the honourable member for Fort Charlotte.
Speaker, I think the honourable member owes the chair an apology. It is the chair which enforces.
Yes.
Not any other member.
Yes.
I'm sorry. I
He's
beg.
jealous because you know the rule, and he do not know the rule. That's all.
I beg to.
Thank you, Madam Speaker.
I beg to differ. I beg to differ in terms of the apology. I was talking, and in fact,
What you beg to differ?
Madam Chair. The role of the chair in the Parliament
No, you don't have the role of the chair now.
May I complete the statement, please, Madam Chair?
No, when you start the statement about the role of the chair.
Yeah, so it's impossible to prejudge since I've not completed my statement.
No, don't tell me
I'm
about
just
the role of
simply
the chair.
saying that.
I know about the role
I'm
of the
just
chair.
saying that the role of the chair is established, so there's nothing that any of us would seek to do to
Thank you
alter
very
that.
much.
However, within the Progressive Liberal Party, the member for Fort Charlotte has been designated as the enforcer of the rules of the Parliament.
It's not an enforcer of the rules.
It's unfortunate. It's unfortunate in that regard. And so again, to the point, there has to be a sense of urgency in terms of what we do. And so it is regrettable that we're going to wait until the budget to hear what we are going to do about the present set of challenges. What are those tactical steps that are being taken? We stand ready to work with the government to assist in any way we can at the constituency level, at the national level. I once again, I wish to thank the Minister of Health. Just recently, I began to get updates on some of the stats as it relates to COVID. What we requested, just to be clear, is to be included in the meetings with the EOC so that we are able in real time to ask questions of the health professionals so that we could be responsible in any comments that we make publicly relative to the changing regulatory landscape as it relates to COVID. To date, months later, we're still not included in those discussions. And so I appeal to the member for Tall Pines and the member for Cat Island, Rumkey, and San Salvador to follow the tradition. You were included on a number of occasions in those meetings. You were invited to those meetings. I can't speak to how many times the Prime Minister invited you. I was aware of times when you were invited. That's all. I was aware of 2 times that you were invited. I was aware. I can't speak. I cannot speak. We have not been invited on 1 occasion. I was aware, and there could have been more times you were invited. So I'm just asking, it's a new day, my brother. So, go ahead and do the righteous thing to include. No, the member for Fox Hill from his seat is saying I should barge into the meeting. We are abhor the violent language that continues to be used by members of Parliament, these aggressive language. We don't function that way. We don't function that way. And so stay focused. What we want is to be included.
Honourable member for Marcos City, did you say you are not aggressive?
Sorry?
You?
Madam.
I want that stricken from the record. That's not true.
Madam Speaker, again, we would like to be included. Member for Cat Island, Rumkey, and San Salvador, and Tall Pines, in the briefings that you have on a regular basis, we are prepared to be helpful. As I wrap up, I just simply, and I'm looking forward to this afternoon, which will be, I think, a wonderful time for us to talk about the celebrating the Bahamian genius. I want to, on behalf of the opposition, to congratulate the Charlton family. I watched the race. I was screaming at the television. It was powerful to watch Devon Charlton and an incredible performance on the hurdles, and also to watch Shawnee Miller-Weibo continue to be a pace setter for us internationally. I grew up playing mini basketball under John Todd and Moon McPhee. And so obviously, and also Moon McPhee has a park in Marco City. We happen to have the majority of the parks on Grand Bahama in Marco City. And Moon McPhee's daughter, Coach Yo, is doing an incredible job internationally. And so I want to also extend to her, on behalf of the Free National Movement and Bahamians everywhere, how proud we are of the incredible job that she's doing. We also want to say that we stand with the Minister of Youth, Sports and Culture in efforts being made to complete an agreement that we initially had entered into with the Grand Bahama Port Authority. We got a commitment from Sarah St. George with respect to a 50-meter pool that she would be prepared to come up with. I believe it was 50% of the resources at that time. We had a wonderful discussion in Grand Bahama, and that project is being continued. And so we are excited that the Minister Boleg, and his team is doing a wonderful job. Norris Bain, who is one of the persons who's working not just on that initiative, but on some other powerful initiatives that will put heads in beds in Grand Bahama. I want to say that we stand with you. The members of Parliament in Grand Bahama will stand with you and the ministry in bringing additional facilities to Grand Bahama that will attract multiple tournaments, that will create spaces for persons to do training at the collegiate level and otherwise, both in terms of swimming as well as the multi-purpose facility that's being contemplated. With those few words, we support the pensions bill, and in a very non-aggressive way, I'll take my seat, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
You mean the one that my forward was removed from?
As many. The chair recognizes the honorable member for Freetown.
If I might, the side opposites in Barnabas and Marco City raised in this debate issues surrounding crime. Now, I was accustomed after communications for the other side to raise any issue that they had with the communication. That didn't occur. At least the record of this House is left inaccurate. I'd just like to quite in a short compass address what they have said, because at the relevant time, the urgency of what is happening in this country caused me to be out of this chamber addressing a stabbing in a government-maintained school. And so any talk about lack of urgency on the part of this government is just simply disingenuous, and it's the sort of comment and behavior that gives one pause for permitting the other side to be intimately involved in the inner workings of your government. It's one thing to talk about we're going to work together, and then in your words and actions, do quite the opposite. And yes, there was a stabbing at the A.F. Adderley School involving two young men who police intelligence say may be involved in a gang other than a good gang. The Minister of Education and the State Minister are still downstairs addressing it. But certainly the Commissioner, Deputy Commissioner, and I stand ready to put police into the schools and obviate the debate that we used to have about whether police should be in the school. I trust that is urgent enough for Marco City and St. Barnabas. We got here, as we have said, continuously. For my 30 years at the bar, I've said continuously having spoken to these people, that they're a product of our society, I do not change on that. I have not, many people have had courtesy calls on me as ministers, a whole heap of them. I've not had one request for courtesy call from the opposition. And so for them to say that they are willing to help, my brother, it's a government building. All sorts of people have courtesy calls on me where you can discuss anything you wish. Whenever you get serious, you can call me, not my PA, and arrange a time where you can come. Crime is at a point that I thought in the commissioner's statement, because he prepared it for me in his policing plan, when he said he was 900 men down because of sluggish recruitment for 4.5 years, I didn't think that I would hear what I heard fall from the other side. When we had a drone program that we spent $16 million for, that we have to now work out to address crime, I didn't think that I would hear that fall from that side. As I say, crime isn't political. It's the Commissioner of Police's task to do it with his team. My job is to make sure that it comports with the law and they get every single reasonable asset they seek. We're providing them with the recruitment that they need to fill their numbers. We will have to consider, because we're constrained by the budget passed that we met in place, whether we can provide for selective overtime, because they are 900 men short. So I am really, and I don't know who the enforcer is on the other side. I know I've been told who the enforcer is on our side, but I trust it's not unparliamentary to say, in this country, talk is cheap, very cheap. We have an open door policy at the Ministry of National Security. Law enforcement official meets with government officials twice a week. And so if you wish, if you have ideas, anybody with an idea, we are open to receive you. We're open to discuss things with you. What I will not tolerate is disingenuous behavior, because it does a disservice to this country. Young men have taken it upon themselves to believe that it is normal and natural to run up on somebody with a gun that fires 7.62 rounds and shoot someone 24 times. That is where we are in this country. Those young men range in age from 18 to 30. So it's a deep-seated problem in this country. It was not right or sensible to stop urban renewal ban that took young men in and gave them hope and potential. So if the other side wishes, they can come and sit with me any day except Tuesday, which is Cabinet Day, and days that we are in this house.
Thank you, Honourable Member. The Chair recognizes the Honourable Member from Marco City.
Madam Speaker, I'd only take issue with one point that has been raised by the member for Freetown. Disingenuous is a very strong term, and I just wish to restate, which I think many members of the public know already. A number of us have been working in the trenches with youth groups, community groups for decades. It's been nothing duplicitous or disingenuous about our commitment on the ground in our life before we came to Parliament and since we have come to Parliament. We've always been committed to doing community work. I think one of the strengths that some of us come to the Parliament with is that we are community workers who happen to have been elected. And so the comments from Freetown certainly do not apply to members here who have been working in communities for the better part of their life on these kinds of issues. And it isn't politics that now have us addressing these concerns. They've been addressed historically. I would pretty much leave it there.
Thank you, Honorable Member. The chair recognizes the Honorable Member for Freetown.
My training, my profession for the last 30 years, my skill as an advocate is language. I chose disingenuous deliberately. The member opposite spoke about the comfort that people see us here because we have money, knowing quite well that quite a number of us, certainly in the cabinet, took massive pay cuts to take these jobs. So that is a disingenuous statement because it must be known because we declared our income to be elected. And so that's the sort of thing that I call disingenuous. I really hate to be doing this publicly, but I regard that as disingenuous to suggest to the public, for instance, that, just for an example, that Cat Island, Freetown, Centerville, or Tall Pines, or for that matter, Pinewood and Fort Charlotte, somehow when you look at declarations, somehow are living a cushy life, because many of us have taken pay cuts of 6 figures or more. And that's disingenuous, to use a nice word. For the other side to be involved in community work, as I am, to be involved with altar servers at St. Margaret's Church. It isn't an epiphany for me to know that young people will either be in our gang or a street gang. And so for the other side to know this, to know that they, as it were, put a brake on the urban renewal ban, to know all of this, that is disingenuous.
The chair recognizes the Honorable Member for Marco City.
Madam Speaker, it is not correct. The urban renewal ban traveled, and I've heard this statement made earlier, and I raised it in the House before. This story about the urban renewal ban being disbanded was false then as it is now. It is the same ban that traveled multiple times to go to the US since 2017 to participate in various events. And during the COVID, the protocols restricted much of the gathering and participation that they had grown accustomed to. In fact, the minister with responsibility for social services is armed with a report that outlined the work of the urban renewal ban and the work being done by the various centers. You have a copy of the report. The Minister and Minister of State has a copy of the report. And so we are aware, as you are aware, that this narrative about the ban having been stopped and disbanded is a false narrative. And that's disingenuous.
Thank you, Honorable Member. The chair recognizes the Honorable Member.
Lunch, so I would simply say this.
Lunch is far more important than we'll be discussing at the moment. Continue.
Words, empty words aren't important at all for any purpose. And I understand that many of us have a certain profession where language is important. Action results are important, not language. The starting point of it, Madam Speaker, is very simply, if the learned man of letters for Marco City take umbrage with what I was advised by ACP Stephen Dean and Superintendent Theodore Campbell, I suggest that he can take it up with them. In this place, as I said, I chose the word disingenuous deliberately, and I stand by it.
Thank you, Honorable Member. Asmini, the chair recognizes the Honorable Member for Foxhill.
Well, I was just beginning to enjoy the show. Yeah, it's getting good. The member for Marco City asked about the disability which affected Statelis Bethel. So I'm advised of the following. The law says that anyone who serves as Commissioner of Police or Commander of the Defense Force who having served A, a minimum of 25 years, and B, 7 years in the post of commander or commissioner, can retire as if they served 40 years. At the time of Mr. Bethel's transfer, Commodore Bethel was 1 year shy of the 25 years of service and 2 years shy of serving as commander. So I believe that's the answer to that question. Now, you raised a number of matters connected with labor issues. And and before getting to those, though, both the member for St. Anne's and the member for Marcos City talked about, the member for Marcos City talked about global solutions. If you would recall, in my statement moving the bill, I gave a history of why we are where we are. There was in 2007, when I was public service minister in that year, passed something called the Bridging of Service Pensions Amendment Act, number 2, 2007. And then in 2014, I believe that was during, we were back in office then again.
14.
Yeah, so 2014, we put in place the revisions of the Bridging of Service, the Pensions Bridging of Service Rules 2014. Now, the reason I know that is because Mr. Mackey had come to me during that period, 2002, 2007, complaining about this issue. And I too said, instead of having to go to Parliament each time to deal with these individual bills, why not impose or put in place a generic solution? So the generic solution was the Bridging of Service Pensions Amendment Act number 2 of 2007. And it did precisely that. If you had less than a 2-year break in service, you could apply to the minister, and the minister could administratively fix the problem. So that act exists now, and the rules are there now to do that. The problem is where people fell outside of this, there was still a category of persons. And I add again, that I was advised by both the lawyers and the permanent secretary at the time that this would fix the problem. Only to find out after the law came into force, and the minister who subsequently became the public service minister, Mr. Shane Gibson, I kept saying, why isn't this being done? Why isn't this being done? The Attorney General's office then advised that it didn't fix the problem because it had no retrospective effect. So that's why we're where we are again with these bills. And I'm hoping that this category is now exhausted and that most people who are left who need the bridging of service will fall within the category of the 2-year break, and the minister, since it's prospective, and the minister will be able to fix those problems administratively. In our discussions in our caucus, the one solution was in fact to say, let us amend the law so that the act is deemed to come into force retrospectively. That may be one way to fix this problem. Then everybody who comes, you can just deal with administratively. But we're hoping that the category is pretty much exhausted now. And if there are others, well, I guess they'll come forward. But most of them should be able to be dealt with by the existing generic legislation, which is on the books. Now, the points you made about promotions and the various movements and deployments. I want to make a general statement. A government comes into office, and this would be a new issue for you, and meets a status quo. People elect you to carry out policies. So you could meet the status quo, and there's supposed to be this neutral public service that we have. But in fact, some people have argued there are 3 political parties in the country, the F&M, the PLP, and the public service. And to put in a more neutral sense, Michael Manley, when he lost to Edward Seaga in 1980, told me that one of the reasons why his government wasn't successful during the time he was in office was because the pace of change that the political directorate wanted to apply to the country. The public administration simply could not support it, either through, malice or by reason of the fact that they didn't have the capacity to do it. So you wanted to make all these changes, and then people suddenly just don't support what you do. That's the malice part. Or secondly, they don't have the capacity to do it. So what do? And this is not a new problem for you because you discovered the problem yourself. When you came to office, you made changes in the Ministry of Finance, right at the start. And you brought someone in at tremendous salary and all the benefits and all the rest of it because you figured he would be able to work with you. So management of an enterprise has to manage, and you have to get your work done. And if you don't do it, you'll be out of office the next time. You may be out anyway, but you may as well try to get people who will work with you. And you try to do it in a lawful fashion. Right? What do you do? Yes?
The chair recognizes the honorable member.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. I didn't want to interrupt, but since you yielded, I don't know if that's a fair comparison because when you look at what was done in finance, there was a difference of a senior civil servant, the financial secretary, as compared to what the member from Marcos City is speaking about, where there are administrators. And so I think the comparison really is a different.
I only sought to say. I'm sorry. I'm only seeking to say that when you are running when you are managing an enterprise, you want to put in place people who will manage for you, right? So now you make the point about the administrators. My recollection is the minister issued a statement as far back in December explaining what the objections are, the answering the objections. Insofar as we're aware, there is no unlawful activity engaged or anything contrary to the rules. We've tried to the frustration of many ministers, I can tell you, the rules are being followed. And the public service is a very rules-based enterprise to the point where it almost grinds you to a halt. It's so rules-based. It's one of the exceptions to the general labor law, as I understand it, where you can actually go and enforce provisions where people you don't want to be with you are forced to be with you because of those rules. So you have to act carefully, and every minister is properly advised on what to do insofar as those rules are concerned. And then I would say there are a lot of capacity problems which we're struggling with. And this may be structural. Just before you left office, there were reappointments to the Public Service Commission, which is the body responsible for hiring, transfers, and promotions. Now, let's not use the Bahamas as an example. Let's use the US. They changed the law so that in some cases, I think with the, maybe with the Federal Reserve, but anyway, the idea is that these appointments should generally be coterminous with the term of the party in office. Right? Now, one of the ways you can tie the hands of your successors is just before you leave office, you can appoint someone to these constitutional bodies that goes beyond your remit. And so what we met in place, for example, with the Public Service Commission, which is responsible for the promotions, transfers, so forth, is that those appointments were renewed, some of them to October 2023. So that takes us into, 3 years into our term? So the leader of the government wants to accomplish certain things, And I'm not making any accusation, but you want to have people who understand your mission to work with you. So that becomes a problem. And so you work gingerly with this. I mean, we left in place some Foreign Service rules to hide the Foreign Service off completely from the public service. And so they have their own track. And I come back 4.5 years later, not a single thing has been done. These people's careers are stuck in limbo. No promotion. Some of them I was just looking at the other day. For 16 years, they've been working in a place and no promotion. We thought, when I left, I thought 4.5 years ago that, well, I did my best, changed the rules, gave them a separate career path. And I come back, lightning is luckily, in my case, struck 3 times. And I find that it's just where I left it, if not regressed 4.5 years ago. So what my point is that you have to give some allowance for a new regime, a new administration in power to be able to manage, to get its goals done. And then, if those goals aren't accomplished at the end of the day, you can object and go back to the public and say, look, they did a bad job. But we have the authority, in my view, to manage, and we are doing so within the rules, and we are trying to get these goals done and done quickly. You also know that there's an issue with dispatch in the public service generally. One, because it's rules-based, and then secondly, it just takes a long time to get done. So that would be my answer there. I mean, I say this because people come to the public service minister and say, well, now you're the public service minister. I want my promotion. I've been waiting for 10 years. Problem is, the public service ministry is a cipher. It is not the decision maker with regard to these things. So what we are is a funnel to get to the Public Service Commission. It is the commission in the Constitution that's responsible for appointments, transfers, and promotions, not the Public Service Ministry. Now, the Prime Minister has a role in the Constitution because nothing can get to the Public Service Commission until the various recommendations are made either from the Prime Minister or the Minister. If you are an FAS and above, the Prime Minister has to sign off on that promotion going to the Public Service Commission. But the Public Service Commission now has a capacity problem. It is quite obvious. So you might have heard the Minister of State speaking in here about her plans to try and reorganize things in the Public Service Ministry to make it possible to get these things through more quickly. And this has to be done because customs officers have been waiting for promotions. Prison officers right now waiting for promotions. When I came back again, immigration officers, the immigration officers told me, I don't know whether this is true, that your administration took the position there, Mitchell's children, Mitchell's babies, so let Mitchell take care of you, you could. I'm only telling you what they told me. So when I got back, 4.5 years later, nothing done, nothing. So there are all of these issues that we have to deal with. You talked, member, about the road traffic department. The road traffic department, as far as I was aware, you brought someone in from the outside yourselves to run the road traffic department. So that's not news. That someone's brought you twice. You brought in someone from outside of immigration to run the immigration department. Each time. I hear you, but I mean, but what I'm saying is, there was a control of road traffic, and you moved that control of road traffic, and you brought someone else in, as far as I know. Right? Same thing with the director of immigration. Mr. Pratt was the director of immigration. As soon as we lost the election, Mr. Pratt was gone. and he became an undersecretary in the ministry, and someone was brought in to run the Department of Immigration. Yes, sir.
The chair recognizes the honorable member for Marcus City.
Thank you very much. So I'm not taking issue with that particular point. What I'm saying is there are several. I believe in road traffic alone, there must be a 4 to 5 persons who have expressed concern in the letters that they have sent that they are being redeployed, though they have institutional memory, having been there in some cases for decades. So I was simply asking the question to offer some insight into what would be the basis of the redeployment and persons who have come in at that level. We're not talking about the controller level, but at that level to replace them who have a learning curve, who have to come up to speed in order to offer the same quality of service. That was the point.
I understand that, but just go back to my generic point. You have new managers now, if you want to put it that way. There's a new sheriff in town, and the new sheriff wants to organize things in a different fashion. So, as a manager, you have a right to manage and choose who to manage. And once you don't violate rules of due process, I'm not sure what the issue is in the system that you have.
The chair recognizes the honorable member for East Grand Bahamas.
So that could be interpreted as, and I want to be very careful in the words that I use. See, when you say you have a new manager, and the new manager wants people who, in essence, will work with them, that's a difference between saying, I am a PLP and I want someone who follows the same philosophy as I do. So that's what I'm saying. What you are saying is not necessarily a unique situation, given, take what happens in the United States when an administration changes, there are certain positions that change automatically. So we have to do it in a manner where you don't exceed that position to where it is and I'm not going to use any political party, but where it is a political party who is removing someone because they are affiliated with a different political party. And so you know, it may take a having to sit down with both sides and determine what are those parameters that are going to be used by future administrations to make that happen. It may be there are certain positions where will be accepted as being changed. There are certain positions will not be accepted as being changed.
You're talking constitutional change, but you know, I know enough about this system. You know, we operate our system in the Bahamas on a wink and a nod. You know, so everybody's suddenly neutral, but you know, everybody knows who is who. You know, so we shouldn't pretend. I mean, we can pretend, but everybody knows who is who. Well, yeah. So what I'm saying is, but don't complain about it. I'm saying because you practice it with a fine art. As a matter of fact, if anybody, we learned it from you. We learned it from you.
Yeah, you're perfect. The chair recognizes the honorable member for Marcus City.
I mean, if you.
Madam Speaker, Madam Speaker, the member for Fox Hill seeks to sanitize a political behavior that has been practiced by some on both sides, when in fact it is contributing to the lack of continuity in government in certain departments. Yes.
Honorable member.
So,
Members.
So let me just finish the point. Let me finish the point. So let me
Members. There's one member on the floor at a time, please.
Yes, could you advise him? Advise him.
Yes. Member.
Advise him. So again, and the reason I'm making that point is I've been in two ministries. In two ministries. So it's easy to go and check to see how many persons' contracts were ended or removed, etc. So I wouldn't want the public to go away with the impression that every member that you see here who had portfolio was going through and performing a political litmus test to determine who stays and who goes. That wasn't the case. Now
Members, one member at a time.
Well, I think the public understands that position, so I'll leave that there.
Recognizes the honourable member for West Grand Bahama and Belize.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I wish to move that we extend beyond the 1 o'clock hour to complete this matter that we are now dealing. So I now move, Madam Speaker.
Is there a seconder? It has been moved and seconded that the business of this House will continue beyond 1 p.m. All those in favor shall remain seated. Those opposed will rise. The House will now proceed beyond the 1 o'clock hour.
So, and then, so I think that essentially answers that point, is that all that's happening is we're now 6 months into our mandate. Too much time has gone past and it's taken too long. The Foreign Service appointments, the honorable member for Cat Island was reminding me of this system, Westminster system. And there's a system that says when the new persons take over, you offer your resignation. I understand, but even in those positions, people were stenching, and they knew better. You know, they knew better. And as regards what's happening in the United States, or what happens in the United States, where they've institutionalized that change at all levels, we're actually the way your administration, and meaning F&M administrations, have practiced, essentially we've moved to that point. The use of the no, it isn't. No, it isn't. That's why I said, you know, I was saying it in a jocular fashion, but I mean, you really practiced it to a fine art. The ability, the forensic ability to determine that one's PLP, that one's F&M, that one's with me, that one's not with me. And if you PLP, God help you, under the F&M administration, in any public body, people were in absolute terror. That's what happened. You know, so all I'm saying is we're trying our best. I mean, I just shared with my colleagues yesterday. I mean, the extent to which this what I call spitefulness took place just astounded me. It really astounded me. People who I helped with their careers, who I thought were my allies, even though you're on the other side, the meanness with which they just exploded after becoming members of the government, I couldn't believe it. You know, I sat out here at Dow Rose's funeral, the service they had here. They actually, myself and Dr. Delaval, told the police to move us to get, because we had no place in the service. Why would you do that? Well, I don't know, but what I'm saying is that's what happened. That's what happened. You know, I would call ministers of the government, and I came up on the Pinling system where whether you were PLP or F&M, if you called Pinling and he said, I will do X for you, he just got on the phone and did it because qua your office. That's the way it was. But you call, he says, man, what?
Running from the office. No, okay.
I mean, you know, nothing. But right now, that's you know, that's still my position. You're supposed to be gracious. You're the leader of the opposition. You're the office. If you call me, I respond to it. Absolutely. That's my view. That's what you right? Do. But you know, we are terrified that if we lose again and you take over, this meanness and spitefulness is going to come back again. I'm telling you. I am telling you. I'm telling you. I'm telling you. I'm telling you.
Honorable member for Marco City.
Speaker, this is laughable, terrified. No, listen. We have had persons who have been berated and ran out of offices. Tell them take what on the top of the desk, not what's inside the desk, out of the office. I can't think now if that has happened under the FNM. I'd like to know under which minister did that happen? Terrified, where people could walk into offices and say, you're still here today, but why y'all ain't going yet? That culture is different.
And put him in chains. That's what y'all did. That's what y'all did. And no basis for it. None. That's what y'all did. Dion Smith, you send the police in for his own property. That's what y'all did. That's what y'all did. Frank, what? Frank Smith. And on and on and on. All of them failed. Millions of dollars spent on a failed political persecution exercise. That's what y'all did. Come on. You cannot sanitize that. You cannot sanitize that. You cannot sanitize that. It is, people have a bitter memory of it. Bitter memory of it. This fella who had a bad leg, put in chains and dragged through the streets like a common criminal. The man was just a minister of the government 2 days before. Deliberately locked up Ken Dorset so he couldn't get bail. That's what y'all did. That's what y'all did.
The chair recognizes the honorable member for Marco City.
You're saying you're terrified, given the persons who are running the Free National Movement. You are telling the public today that you are terrified that we will take a course of action that is ultra-virus of the law. And no, let me finish. Ultra-virus of the law. I can give you a list. That's one. No, that's a different point. You're making a different point. But we can litigate your history, but that's
members.
We could litigate the history, but that's not going to be helpful right now. I'm asking by way of the chair, the member for Fox Hill, given the players who are in place, what our track record has been in public life, those of us who will be in place in 2026, you're saying that you're terrified. I'm asking you that question.
The chair recognizes Fox Hill.
You're a playwright, man. You're a playwright. You know how to write plays. And this is another drama for you, right? But this is a serious point for me. This is another drama for you, but this is a serious point for me. I'm saying, I'm not making any personal allegation against any of you. As a matter of fact, the member for East Grand Bahama will tell you that he's the most believable spokesman on your side. I don't believe a word he says, but he's the most believable person you got. I don't believe anything he says. But the member for East Grand Bahama, he can sing a song that can sell ice to the Eskimos. But I don't believe him. So I'm not making a personal allegation against you. I'm talking generically. I'm saying institutionally. That is our experience. And our supporters have a legacy of bitterness as a result of it. To the point where there's all this upward pressure on us. Do this, do this, do this, do this.
The honorable member for Baines and Grantstown.
Madam Speaker, thank you very much. And I apologize to the member for Fox Hill. But listening to the debate and listening to across the floor, it gives me nightmare. Because I can speak about personal experiences with respect to the way I've been treated as a senior executive officer in the Ministry of Finance for 18 years. The way I was treated. I'm not even talking about Minister Shane Gibson. I'm not talking about the other minister represented. I'm talking about Wade Watson, a hard-working young man who rise to the top from the bottom and became the most senior executive officer, the most senior IT professional in the public service, and was stripped of my duties and responsibilities by virtue of political victimization. Not once, twice. And I can tell you in the last administration, I was called upstairs and said, listen, you need to tender your resignation and you need to turn in your government vehicle. And before I came downstairs, my access to my email, my access to the door that entered the building were all stripped. And the secretary followed me to my car to remove my personal belongings out of the government vehicle. I can tell you personal experience. So I support what the member for Fox Hill is debating on. And I can tell you straight and plain that what the member for Marco City is talking about is utter rubbish because of personal experience.
I can say is this. I represented police officers. I didn't know you could fire police officers like that. But the deputy prime minister, who was then the national security minister, called in senior officers of the force and said, pack your Georgie bundle now. You're gone. You're gone. They did it. They did it. They did it. And in the last administration, you went and you talking about redeployment. Remember, just give me a second. In the last administration, you were talking about redeployment. What about those assistant commissioners of police sent to do guard duty in the Ministry of Education? Well, you see, what I'm saying is, that's what I'm saying. I was making a generic point, not against you.
The chair recognizes the honorable member for Marco City.
As a 19-year-old young brother Watson, as a 19-year-old, I was arrested on Bay Street simply protesting as a result of the outcome of the Commission of Inquiry report. We could give a historical retrospective in terms of the track record of the PLP and its. Let me finish the point. We can do that, except let me finish. Allow me to finish the point. 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 So what I'm saying to you is that you will find that some cases you identify, this leadership will have no quarrel with your characterization. But what I am saying to you is that you claim you have a new day. We know we have a new day. And we are simply saying to you, let us be forward-looking in order to address the needs of the Bahamian people. And don't try, if you want to go backwards, we could go all day about what has happened under the PLP. But that is unhelpful and it's unhealthy. Because that can't explain why people are making $250, $300, $400 being fired throughout the public service right now. So let's move forward. Let's move forward.
Members.
Let's move forward.
The chair recognizes
let's move forward.
We can move forward. I was simply trying to answer that simple, specific point you made about redeployment. And I'm saying you just came out of a government when you used it to a fine art. Practiced fine art. To a practiced fine art. And so, he who comes to equity must come with clean hands. That's all we say. That's all we say. All right, I thank you all for supporting these bills. These people will be pleased, I hope, and I hope we've actually resolved the problem, and that the category about which St. Anne's was speaking is going next to zero, and that we can address this going forward in a generic fashion. I thank you very much.
Thank you, honorable member. It has been moved and seconded that the following bill be read a second time and committed. A bill for an act to provide for the continuous service in the public service of Mary Mitchell. As many are in favor, will remain seated. Those opposed will rise. Order that the bill be read a second time in committee.
A bill for an act to provide for the continuous service in the public service of Mary Mitchell.
For the second reading of bills?
I'd like to move for a bill for an act to provide for the continuous service in the public service of Raymond Mackey.
Second. Thank you, honorable members. It has been moved and seconded that the following bill be read a second time and committed. A bill for an act to provide for the continuous service in the public service of Raymond Mackey. As many are in favor will remain seated. Those that are opposed will stand. The motion is carried. Order that the bill be read a second time and committed.
A bill for an act to provide for the continuous service in the public service of Raymond Mackey.
For the second reading?
I'd like to move a bill for an act to provide for the continuous service in the public service of Japheth Edison Delaval.
Thank you, honorable members. It has been moved and seconded that the following bill be read a second time and committed. A bill for an act to provide for the continuous service in the public service of Japhet Edison Delaval. Or as many are in favor will remain seated. Those opposed will stand. The motion is carried. Ordered that the bill be read a second time and committed.
A bill for an act to provide for the continuous service in the public service of Japhet Edison Delaval.
For the second reading,
I'd like to move for a bill for an act to provide for a pension for Tellis Bethel, retired Commodore of the Royal Bahamas Defense Force.
thank you, honorable member. It has been moved and seconded that the following bill be read a second time and committed. A bill for an act to provide for a pension for Tellis Bethel, retired Commodore of the Royal Bahamas Defense Force. As many are in favor will remain seated. Those that are opposed will stand. The motion is carried. Ordered that the bill be read a second time and committed.
A bill for an act to provide for a pension for Tellis Bethel, retired Commodore of the Royal Bahamas Defense Force.
So I'd like to move now for a bill for an act to amend the National Honors Act, and then I think you can move the suspension.
Thank you.
So he'll move the suspension and I'll return on my feet.
Thank you, honorable member. The chair recognizes the honorable member for West Grand Bahama.
Speaker, I wish to now move for the suspension of the House to return at 3 o'clock this afternoon following the lunch break on this, the 23rd of March, 2022.
Is there a seconder? Thank you, honorable member. It has been moved and seconded that the business of this House be suspended until 3 p.m. today. As many are in favor will remain seated. Those opposed will stand. The motion is carried. The business of this House stands suspended until 3 p.m. today.
Hold on!
Excellent, excellent.